Hello, my friends, and welcome to a fantastic lesson about time. It's a very useful thing to have. But before we talk about time, I want to ask you a question. What do you think the earliest household clock looked like? Maybe it even looked a little bit like this, right? What if I told you that the earliest household clock didn't have hands, or gears, or any moving parts at all, or maybe even numbers, at least in the way we're used to? Well, long, long ago, in the land of Babylon, humans learned to use the sun's light to measure time. They used their knowledge of astronomy to create shadow clocks to measure the hours of work and of commerce. What if I told you around the same time similar devices appeared in the land of Egypt as well as elsewhere, such as China? Later on, the Greeks even adopted this technology for their own use and improved upon it with their amazing understanding of geometry and astronomy. It's even said that the Greeks created a shadow clock that could be used anywhere on Earth. The Romans then, of course, made use of these clocks as well. And as time went on, this technology passed around the world through trade and travel. Even in the Middle East, during the Islamic Golden Age, it was used to determine when to pray, and had such heavy usage that more improvements were added to it to create an even more accurate shadow clock, using things like algebra and trigonometry. This revived interest in this technology around the world, and it continued to spread and improve due to the contributions of many clever and intelligent thinkers and tinkerers. We call this ancient technology the sundial. You may have heard of it before. A sundial is a form of ancient technology that uses an understanding of the position of the sun and its rays to measure the passage of time during the day. In fact, before the invention of the mechanical clock, the sundial was the primary source of time for everything. Even with those mechanical clocks, they weren't very accurate at first, and they needed to be reset constantly using a sundial. Well, my friends, now it's time for you to make your own sundial. All you're going to need is this template, a glue stick, some scissors to cut that out, and a compass. And then we're also going to set something up with some graph paper. But for right now, why don't you go ahead and cut out that sundial? All right, now that you have that template cut out, this part is pretty easy, but we do need to do some folding. So go ahead and take this and fold it in half along that first line right in the middle there. Give it a good crease. Then you'll notice it has sort of two wings now. What you want to do is take one of those lines and fold the other way along that. And make sure to give it a good crease. And do the same thing on the other side. Find that line and reverse the fold. And you should start to see what's called the gnomon, or what's going to cast the shadow to tell you what time it is. All you need to do now is get some glue or tape in there to hold that together. And give that a good crease on each side. You can also use a ruler to help reinforce that because you want it to stick straight up. So using that ruler to just give that extra little bit of crease or fold to make it stand straight up. And now your sundial is ready to go. Of course, you might want to add some decoration or color it, or maybe even some groovy pictures. You can also try to measure those angles and maybe even make a bigger one. But this is pretty much a ready-to-go sundial. But now it's time to take it outside and set it up. And you're going to need some other things to do that. You're going to need a compass because we're going to need to set this in a right alignment. But also, let's test its accuracy. So grab yourself a piece of graph paper. Make sure you have a ruler and a pencil. We're going to set up a simple table to test this thing. Go ahead and draw a line at the top of your graph paper, right across. Make sure to leave a little bit of space above so you can write some things down. Now, draw another line right down the center. On this side, let's write time. And let's pick a time range about, after the sun has come up to before the sun goes down. For me, I was thinking I would check a 12-hour period from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And you'll notice on the sundial, actually, well, that's about the range you can tell because once the sun goes down, or if it's not up, this actually can't tell you much of anything. So, 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock. We'll write all the hours down for a range of 12 hours. All right, and the other thing you might want to do is just add the AMs and the PMs. It's not super confusing, but you never know. It's just a good thing to be practicing. All right, we have a range of times that we're going to check our sundial, and we want to record the time that the sundial tells us on the other side. So we will write sundial. And as you see that we have this data table set up, you could be using those graphing skills to graph this. But this page will be for today. Oh, wow, but today already started, so maybe I'll be starting this tomorrow. Think about that when you decide to start this experiment. Either way, make sure you put the date somewhere on this page so you know. You'll want to recreate this table again tomorrow or the next day, and the next day, and for a couple of days and see if you notice any differences. What we're going to want to do is we're going to go out and place this outside in a moment in a nice place where we can catch those solar rays. And then every hour we want to go out and check and see, is that giving us the correct time? And we want to keep track of that over a couple of days and see if there's any differences. So with that in mind, I'm going to start mine tomorrow. And tomorrow is May 1st. So I'm going to write on here May 1st. And I could decorate this and color it and make a fantastic booklet of many pages, but I bet you want to go outside and see how to set this thing up. Now, you will need a compass, or you can use your understanding of where the sun rises and sets to try to find due north. You'll notice on the gnomon, you can see it says true north. So we want to get this thing outside pointing in the same direction as north. And having a compass will give you a very good reading. All right, let's head outside and check this thing out. Hey friends, we're out, and as you can see, the sun is nice and bright, which should give us a good shadow to test out these sundials. So take a look at what I've done here. So you can see I've got my table, I've got a compass, I've got the sundial, and I noticed it's a little breezy out here today, so I've got some rocks, and actually I clipped my sundial to my clipboard too.
maybe you can make a nice heavy base for your sundial, or even make it out of another type of material that's a little heavier, but I can actually move it around on this clipboard too. All right, so let's set it to due north using that compass. We're going to wait for that red needle to be hitting right to north, and there we go. The clock is at the right position. Check your gnomon. It should be, of course, pointing due north, but also it should be standing straight up. And if it's moving a little bit, if it's hitting at the wrong angle, you can just sort of nudge it this way and that way until you get it straight up. The next thing to do, once it's aligned, is to check a watch and see what time it is. And you can see it's about 11:25. And take a look at my sundial there. It is reading a little after 10:20. Uh-oh, you say. That's not right. Actually, if you might remember, we just bumped all our clocks an hour ahead. Sundial's not too easy to do that with. But by turning it just a bit, we can set it right there. However, that might change things later in the day, so we want to be careful about doing that. If you're all right with using your imagination, remember that your sundial is going to show you a time that is an hour earlier. Just remember to add an hour to that. But what I'm seeing right now is that my sundial is pretty accurate. What I want to do is come back out around noon and see if it also says noon, whether I have it adjusted exactly to due north or just slightly off, to see if I can give it that hour ahead change. Well, go ahead and track these sundials for a couple of days. See how accurate they are. Set up several in different locations and see how accurate they are. And maybe even do some research on how we use one of these in a different part of the world, because that does change things. Think about latitude, think about longitude, and think about the sun. Friends, have fun with this ancient technology, and I'll see you again soon.